After working as a music supervisor for one of the top music libraries in reality TV, I've been able to learn the ins and outs of what makes a successful pitch for sync licensing. Let's break down my top 5 best tips of what makes a successful pitch for sync licensing, starting off the bat with tip number 1, which is gonna be research. One of the biggest mistakes you can make when sending your music to a sync licensing company is not doing your research. For example, I've seen so many people send a link of their hip hop beats to a music library that only accepts high quality cinematic orchestral type beats. When you're pitching your music, make sure you take the extra time to research the company. See what kind of projects they worked on, what type of music they have in their catalog, and where you can stand out and bring value to their company. Tip number 2, what's the best file sharing link to submit? If you're familiar with sync licensing, there's no secret right now that using the right submission platform will increase your odds of getting your music heard. For example, if you're using a Google Drive link, you're probably not going to get many ears on your music because Google Drive is too inconsistent and often won't play any file type outside of MP3. Instead, I recommend Disco.ac. Disco is like Dropbox and iTunes put together. This has become the industry standard for music licensing companies because you can include your metadata, you can include your stems. Music companies can even include a link to your playlist directly to their inbox. Now, this is a platform that is a monthly subscription, so if this is something that's out of your budget, then I do recommend Dropbox. The reason being is that you can easily see the waveform while browsing your tracks, and it's not distracting like SoundCloud, where there's options to hear other people's music, or even worse, receive ads when listening to your music. Leading us to tip 3, which is actually music. You can understand the context of your music being used and you're setting yourself up for success. There's so many different avenues when it comes to sync licensing. You might be a producer whose sound fits really well for TV but would never fit for video games. Or you might be an artist whose music can resonate really well with an ad or a commercial but doesn't fit well for a movie. Understanding of how your music can be used and what type of project it resonates with the most is one of your biggest assets. This involves you actually watching these shows, movies, and ads and becoming a student of the game. Listen to how these instruments are used, the arrangement, the emotion, and the lyrical matter. All of these play a factor. TV shows have a different feel than ads, and ads have a different feel than video games. Which type of tracks does your music resonate with the most? My mentor at the music library I worked for used to play TV shows in his car while he was driving, and he would just listen to the music without actually watching the show. This advice changed the way I even approach my music for sync licensing and gave me more intention when I'm watching TV, films, and even ads. Pitching your music knowing the context it can be used in shows your professionalism and awareness of this industry. By the way, let me know in the comments below, do you watch TV? And if so, what type of show would you want your music to be on? Tip number 4, emailing. Dress to impress is a phrase we're all familiar with, and it's even more relevant when pitching your music for sync. It can be intimidating when first pitching your music out, so let's give you some tips to affirm your confidence. Most of these companies accepting your music, whether it's a music library, a sync agency, or a music supervisor, have a love for music. Great music excites them, and while having great music is important, how you introduce yourself is also just as important. The biggest mistake I see musicians make is just copying and pasting an email template without any personalization. Treat these companies as a professional. They're not your friends. Don't just say yo and act like you've known them for a long time. These people you're submitting to are human, and connecting with them is just as important. Keeping your email brief between 2 to 3 paragraphs, giving a brief summary of who you are and what you have to offer is important, but also mentioning what project that company has worked on that resonates with you, or any music from their catalog that inspires you is also important to mention. Not everything is about you, so building that relationship on a personal level is really important. And to finish off your email, thank them for their time. Some weeks when I was approving or denying submissions as a music supervisor for a music library, I would see 50 to around 100 music submissions in a week. So just a small gesture like thanking them for their time helps you in the long run. By the way, if you're looking on how to pitch your music, I've included a completely free 8-minute video in the description on how to get started. Lastly, our final tip for tip 5 is following up. I feel like this is an important point to touch on because we may not hear back from these companies we submit to, but it's not always because your pitch was bad or your music didn't fit. In some circumstances, it could be that they're just too busy. They might not have a chance to take your submission. You definitely don't want to overwhelm them and spam their inbox asking if they listen to your music. You want to be patient in this process. I generally advise that you wait 2 to 3 weeks before following up, and when you do follow up, only follow up once. You don't want to say, did you check my music yet either? You really want to be cordial about it and build that communication without overwhelming them. If you don't hear back, don't take it offensively. Just take it with a grain of salt and move on to the next company that you believe sync best fits your music. There's thousands of companies out there, and finding the right one is important for you. And there you have it, my top 5 favorite tips when pitching. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments below, or feel free to join our community where we share more insight like this. Thank you for watching.